Hey guys, today we are going to review right triangle trigonometry. So you might remember covering this in Math 2. You should. I believe you guys spent quite a lot of time on it. So getting down to the basics. If you have a right triangle, it's really important to understand your angle determines where you're looking. So whatever your reference angle is, I would circle that and then everything goes from there, except the hypotenuse. Remember we talked about in the last video, your hypotenuse is always the longest and it's opposite this right angle, which means your reference angle is never going to be your right angle. But wherever that reference angle is, the side across from it is called the opposite, because it's opposite the angle. The side next to it is called adjacent because it's next to the angle. All right, so if I'm talking about angle A, so first thing I want to do here is circle angle A. This is my reference angle. That little theta is just a symbol for angle. The hypotenuse is not going to change. It's always going to be the longest, always opposite the right angle. So which side is opposite angle A would be BC. So this would be opposite, or my O. Which side is adjacent to angle A would be AB. So adjacent means next to, so it's going to share a side with that angle, and that's my adjacent side. Now, if they're talking about angle C, now my reference point is going to change. So I'm actually going to use green because blue and purple sometimes look the same. So green is over here. So now if I'm talking opposite angle C, opposite it would now be this side. So AB is opposite C, and then adjacent is now BC. BC is adjacent to angle C, and I might call that theta. Hypotenuse never changes. B would never be the reference angle because that's already 90 degrees. So the 90-degree angle is never your reference angle. All right. So then we learn this silly expression, so, ka, toa. So one of our great pre-calc teachers actually taught me to remember some old hippie caught another hippie tripping on acid. If that helps you, great. This is the one of the few times that spelling does matter in math. So SOH, S stands for sine, is opposite over your hypotenuse. CAH is saying cosine is your adjacent over your hypotenuse. TOA, T, tangent, O, opposite over adjacent. So, ka, toa. That's how you want to set it up every time. So if this is my triangle and I want to find the sine, cosine, and tangent of K. So they're telling me K is my reference angle, so I want to circle that. Hypotenuse is going to be my longest. Opposite means across from my angle, so that's this LJ side, and then adjacent is right here. So sine of K, sine is so I want to say sine of K is opposite, 15, over hypotenuse, 17. Cosine of K, so now I'm doing ka, cosine is adjacent, which is 8, over hypotenuse, which is 17. So 8 over 17. If it reduced, I would simplify it, but these don't. All right, last one is tangent. So tangent is TOA. So tangent is opposite over adjacent, TOA. So I'm going to do 15 over 8. Okay, go ahead and try this one. So pause it. All right, let's go over it. So sine of R. So now my reference angle is R, so I want to circle that. I want to label my hypotenuse is the longest across from the 90-degree angle. O is opposite of that reference angle, and then A is adjacent. So opposite over hypotenuse. You can simplify, so we're going to do 18 divided by 82. You can either do math fraction, or you just know that 2 goes into both of those, so we get 9 over 41. Cosine of R, ka, so adjacent over hypotenuse, 80 divided by 82, math fraction, or you should know that 2 goes into both of those, so 40 over 41. Tan of R is TOA. So 18 over 80, 18 divided by 80, math fraction, or you could again divide both of them by 2. Okay, so calculator steps. When we are actually going to be typing these in our calculator, so if they just say to find the trig ratio, you're just going to leave it like this. If we're actually finding the value, we want to make sure that our calculator is in degree mode. So you're going to hit mode. Mode is right there next to the second button, and then you want to highlight where it says degree. So come off of radians and do degrees. Every time you clear the memory in your calculator, you're going to have to go back and put it in degree mode. If you do not have a graphing calculator, you can use your smartphone if you turn it sideways. There are calculators that will still let you find trig ratios. So if you need a specific link, just email me. So let's try to find sine 48 to the nearest hundredths. So I'm just going to type sine 48. I already changed my degree mode. And in my calculator, I see, oops, sorry, that's actually a 0.7431448. So if it says hundredths, after the decimal, this is the tenths, this is the hundredths, and then this would be thousandths where the 3 is. So everything after the decimal gets a TH. This would be the ones, and then we'd have, if we had a number here, this is tens, right? Hundreds, if we keep going. But if I want to round to the hundreds, I'm going to look behind that place. A 5 or higher goes up, and then less than 5 just stays. So since the 3 is less than 5, my answer is going to be 0.74. All right, find cosine of 85. So I'm just going to type that in. My calculator says 0.087155. Again, I want to look hundredths. Behind that hundredths place is higher than a 5. So I'm going to write my answer as 0.09. Okay, I hope that makes sense. All right, so here are some notes. This is what I had you guys download, but you always want to start by drawing the picture, label the parts, circle the angle if needed, and then you're going to choose the appropriate trig ratio. What I mean by that is, do you have OH? If so, you're going to use sine. Do you have CH? If so, you're going to use cosine. Or do you have OA? If so, you're going to use tangent. So there is a silly expression. You guys know I love my silly expressions. But when we solve, when x is up high, so if your x is in the numerator, you're going to multiply. X up high, multiply. Okay, that's what these notes are saying. If the variable is in the denominator, we're actually going to divide the numerator by the left side. So what they normally say is if x is down low, and I know this one is a y, but if x is in the bottom or in the denominator, you're going to switch them. So I'm going to take this cosine 61 and this y, and I'm going to switch them. So x down low, switch them, you know. So there's the little rhyme there. So in my calculator, I would just do 25 divided by cosine 61. Now, if x is an angle, there's no trick for that. If you are solving for an angle, you want to make sure you're going to use that inverse. Remember, inverse gives you the -1 there. So before you press the sine, cosine, or tangent, you're just going to hit the second button. Mine's blue. Most of y'all have a blue one, but that will let us hit the inverse of sine, inverse of cosine, inverse of tan. All right, so let's look at some examples. So I'm going to start by labeling my sides. So there's my reference angle. I have my hypotenuse, and I have an opposite. There's nothing here, so I'm not even going to label A. I have an OH, which means I'm going to use so. So katoa, so sine of my angle, and there should definitely be a little angle there, equals opposite over my hypotenuse. So x up high, I'm going to multiply. If you don't want to remember that silly expression, you can always put this over 1, and then we're going to cross multiply, or I just need to undo the 10. However you do it, you're going to have x equals 10 times sine of 42. My calculator is still in degree mode, so I'm just going to enter that in. And I get that x is about, let's round to the hundredths. Oops, sorry about that. That's going to be 6.69. Okay, try this next one on your own, so pause it. Okay, hopefully you tried it first. Here's my angle. There should be a degree there. Again, I have opposite and hypotenuse. So I'm going to use sine of 62 equals opposite over hypotenuse. Go ahead and multiply. So x is going to be 15 times sine 62. And I get that x is about, so approximately 13.24. Try it. Okay, here we go. There's the 37 degrees. This time I don't have anything opposite. I have my hypotenuse and I have my adjacent. So if I have AH, I'm going to use cosine. So cosine of my angle equals adjacent over hypotenuse. X is still up high, so I'm still going to just multiply. 40 times cosine 37 would be x. So I'm going to type that in, 40 cosine 37, and I get 31.95 because I actually get 0.945. So behind the 4 is higher than 5, so it comes up. All right, try it, please. Pause. And let's go. So here's my angle. I have opposite and I have an adjacent. I don't have a hypotenuse, so this time I have no h. So OA means I'm going to use tangent. So tan of my angle equals, keep it in the order, opposite over adjacent. All right, x down low. So if I want to think about cross multiplying, this would give me x times tan 32 equals 11 times 1, which is 11. So I'm going to have to divide by tan of 32. The trig and the degree are always glued to each other unless you use the inverse. So that's the beauty of the inverse. So x down low, switch them, you know, so we end up dividing. So I'm just going to do 11 divided by tan 32, and I get 17.60, which is fine if you just write 17.6. All right, please pause it and try it. Let's go. So opposite and adjacent again, tan, because that's OA, so we're going to use tan. Tan 61 equals opposite over adjacent. It's in the bottom again, so I can just think about switching them, or you can cross multiply. However you want to do it, you're going to end up doing 22 divided by tan of 61. So we should get that x is about 12.19. Okay, in order to solve an angle, we already talked about this, we're going to use the inverse. So you just need to press that second button if you have the graphing calculator. Otherwise, it's the same steps. So let's check this one out together. So here's my angle. I don't know what x is, but I have an opposite and I have adjacent. There's nothing for the hypotenuse. So OA is what I'm given. So I want to find tan of the angle. I don't know what that is pretty sure that's a 24. Yeah, 24 over 16. So if I need to separate this angle from the trig function, in my calculator, I'm going to do the inverse. So I'm going to press second tan and then just do 24 divided by 16. This is an angle, so when I write my answer, I want to actually put a little degree. So it should be 56.31 degrees. Please try this one, so pause it. All right, and now let's try it. So for this one, I have an opposite and I have a hypotenuse. So OH means I'm going to use sine. So sine of, I'm not sure, that's what I'm going to solve for. Sine of the angle equals opposite over hypotenuse. If I'm solving for the angle, I'm going to do the inverse of sine of 8 divided by 16. So the inverse of sine 8 divided by 16. If you are one that just sees that that's really 1/2, you could do the inverse of sine of 1/2. Either way, you're going to get a nice even number for this one. So I actually don't even need my about because it's exactly 30 degrees. Okay, when we look at word problems, which show up sometimes, remember angle of elevation. If you are elevating, you are going up. So if they're talking about an angle of elevation, you need to picture that angle going up. So it would be that angle. If we are talking about an angle of depression, depression means you are looking down. So if we're thinking an angle of depression, here's your line of sight, you would be looking down. I hope you remember those terms. All right, so on the bottom of the worksheet you downloaded, you have 6 problems that I want you to try. You can pause it if you didn't download the worksheet. Here are the first 4, and then come back and do those, please. After you're done trying those 6, please check your answers. So pause it and work through it, and then come back and check. So here's your answers for 1 to 3 if you want to pause. And then here are your answers for 4 to 6 if you want to pause. Remember, I am available for help Mondays and Wednesdays from 1 to 3, Tuesdays and Thursdays from 2 to 3, and I am happy to respond to emails or set up another time if you need one. Please keep working, guys. This is so important. Stay safe, be smart. Bye.